Bipolar, enlightenment. Bipolar, enlightenment. Could it be possible that these two experiences, which are thought of as so different from each other, could actually, on a sensory level, be the same thing? At first you may think this is impossible, but when you take a closer look at both experiences, what you'll see is they both start with the same event, a collapse of the ego. So, whether you're a Buddhist monk who gets there after meditating for 20 years, or you're a 19-year-old kid in Chicago who gets hit by it walking through a shopping mall, either way, you're going to have this deeply spiritual experience. And when I say spiritual, what I really mean is mystical. So, to illustrate my point, now I'm going to take you through a series of sensory experiences that are common to both the person going through an experience of enlightenment and the person going through a bipolar manic crisis, otherwise known as a schizophrenic crack-up. To illustrate my point, I'm going to be using the work of my favorite artist, Salvador Dali, who I'm sure you will agree, if he were alive today, would be heavily medicated by his parents. Well, the first thing that often happens in a bipolar manic crisis, and is also known to happen in different forms of enlightenment like Kundalini awakening, is you have this incredible surge of high energy. That's the first thing that hits you. As we described in detail in the previous video of this series, the cause of this surge in energy is that there is an ego collapse and the soul is set free for the first time. For me personally, the deepest mystic sensory experience that I had was this sense of oneness with everything. You lose the separation between you and your body and everything else, to the point where you just feel like you are everything and everything is you, as if you're in a big dream. You feel as if you have accessed a deeper level of reality, and with that there's this deeper level of understanding of who we are and what we're doing here on earth. The experience is indescribable in terms of communicating in normal language, and as a result the person in the experience starts to speak in strange ways, often trying to communicate the experience in metaphors by saying things like "I am God" or "I am Jesus," which often others take literally. A person's senses often become very heightened, with a heightened sense of vision, taste, smell, listening, these kind of things, but also a heightened sensation towards other people. You can feel other people's vibe or read their thoughts in a way that you never could before. For many, there is a sense of timelessness in this experience, and some people even have the sensation that they can control time, stopping and starting time based on their own personal desire or concentration. There will be an overwhelming sense of love coming out of you, with an affection for other people and an appreciation for beauty, so that you might even find yourself showing appreciation and love to things like plants or animals. There is a release of many repressions in this situation, and one of the biggest is the release of the repression of our own shame of our own bodies. And with all this happening, there is just an overall feeling of sacredness to everything, as if you are in the most magnificent church or temple in the world. Everything around you seems to be touched by God. As John Weir Perry describes in The Far Side of Madness, you will often feel, if your process goes long enough, that you are in sort of a middle world, not quite heaven, not quite earth, sort of a bardo or a purgatory, in which all of these experiences are happening. And very often in this middle world, you feel that you are being tested by God in some way, and that maybe even other people are coming to you, not as they appear, like in their earthly name, but as some sort of characters that are there to test you. And, of course, a big part of this test that you're involved in will involve a confrontation with death of some kind. Most people feel that they are somehow encountering their own death, or think they have died in this process. As part of the process of healing, there is often a regression into the origins of your own experience. Many people have the sensation of returning to the beginning of the cosmos, to the Big Bang in a sense. They find themselves in the universe. Others find themselves returning to the womb of their mother. And for some, it's a combination of both and other experiences of past lives and things like that. And as your process starts to move through, you start to have a shift in your values, and your own feelings and your sense of personal integrity become even more important to you than they were before. There is also a broadening of your consciousness, an elevation to a more social, global consciousness, so you might find yourself very concerned with global issues that you never were before. So, like I was saying in the beginning, if you're a 19-year-old kid who's been hit by a bipolar manic crisis, you should easily be able to recognize some, if not all, of these sensory experiences I just talked about. But what you didn't know is that all of these sensory experiences that you had have somehow been related to different forms of enlightenment throughout history. These mystical sensory experiences have been related to Satori in Zen, Samadhi, Hinduism, Nirvana from Buddhism, and even visions of God that Christian saints would have, like St. John of the Cross or St. Francis of Assisi. And in the West, this has been recognized by a number of psychologists and psychiatrists as well, sort of leading-edge people. Stan Grof referred to these sensory experiences as related to a spiritual emergency, which is recognized in DSM-4, that big book of mental illness. Ken Wilber refers to a variety of different mystic experiences, and all of these would be related to what he calls nature mysticism. And Abraham Maslow, who is most famous for the Maslow hierarchy of needs that they use in a lot of marketing departments, he referred to this as a peak experience. So there is clearly a history of understanding this on a psychological level in the West. However, what is enlightenment or a mystic experience in the mainstream today? Well, according to science and psychiatry and our apparently modern society, well, enlightenment is insanity. It's a bipolar manic crisis. It's a schizophrenic crack-up. It doesn't exist. It is a complete breakdown of rational thought caused by a brain damage or a chemical imbalance of some kind in your brain. It has no value to your life whatsoever and is to be stopped and suppressed and drugged at all costs. So now what I want to do in part 2 of this video is go back to those sensory experiences one by one and show how the symptoms that you display based on those sensory experiences are interpreted by others in such a negative way, how they judge you so harshly because of your behavior in that sensory world, and how in the end this basically ruins any opportunity for enlightenment and most of the time keeps you on drugs for your entire life.